how to conduct that demo. So discovery call is probably 90% of the sale is done on the discovery call or the discovery meeting. That first meeting with a prospect is going to be where you win the deal or not. And I know that sounds weird because it's the first call, then you have 50 others. Everything else is pretty much a technicality. So you want to really nail down this discovery call. Now it's kind of like having a GPS system. If you don't put into the GPS system where you want to go, it's really nice. It shows you all the time where you are now, but it doesn't actually lead you in the direction of where you want to go. And this is one of the things that happens very often. And you guys tell me if you've had this or you do this yourself, where you get onto the call with a prospect, you don't really know where to take the call and the conversation, and you kind of just start going all over the place and eventually start talking about your product. If you guys do that, put yes in the chat. Yes with a little sad face. So I want to show you guys a structure here. Been there, done that. Yes. Yeah. Good. So I'm going to show you guys a structure here. Wow. I'm talking too fast. I'm going to show you a structure here that works really well. And the reason why I call it a structure and not a script is because if you guys are going to copy a script, you guys sound very robotic and very boring, and you're not part of the conversation. But when you have a nice structure where you just know, okay, I need to cover A, then I need to cover B, then C, then D, and move forward, then you know where you're going, like that GPS system, but you have the ability to drive the car around a little bit. So what is the first step when you have a call with a prospect? Go ahead and put that in the chat, guys. What do you guys think? You can unmute yourself too as well and speak. Don't be shy. Intros, intro, agenda, upfront, contract, small talk. Good. And Andrew with a question mark. So, oops, let's go here. Small talk. Not even an intro. The small talk is super important, and it's important because you want to start to build a relationship. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. So our whole thing here is to connect with that person. Now, there's a few of you guys that said agenda or asking for permission to proceed. Those are good things to do if you go in that route. I personally don't use these. There's good reasoning behind them. It's not that they're wrong. There's multiple ways to go about sales. I personally don't do it. I don't feel like it's me, and I don't feel like it's kind of fake going forward with that. So I'll show you my structure. So small talk, but this is really important to get over in 1 or 2 minutes. And because you're there to do business, and guess what? So are they. They're also there to do business. And so they don't want to sit here and be your best friend. Not yet anyways. So you move on from small talk to the next step. And this is where the magic starts happening. Qualify. Now, qualification does not mean taking a box of qualification lists and checking them as you go down. Let me make it like this so you can see me a little bit better. It means asking the prospect deep and insightful questions, open-ended questions, so that they could start to tell you and explain the problems that they're having and what it means for the company, what it means for the business. And so I have another workshop on that too, about how to come up with these qualification questions. But here you need to just remember to ask open-ended questions with no assumptions. Even if you're 99% sure or 100% sure you know the answer, it's always better to let the prospect tell you they have this problem than you to tell them. Because they're going to say, yes, you're right. But they're in the back of their head, they're thinking, okay, this guy's a salesman. He's trying to just convince me of something. Be part of the conversation. Have a conversation. Don't sit there and just lecture like I'm doing. So qualify means open questions, open-ended questions, letting them speak. But dive in deep, ask follow-up questions. Keep asking more and more questions. Now, eventually people, after a handful of questions, feel like this is an interrogation. And so you want to take the pressure off of them. Even if it's going smoothly, there's a limit to that. And then you want to move over to the next side. And that is about me or about us. This is now where you're going to take the pressure off of the prospect and bring it onto you. However, you're only going to do this for one sentence. That sentence, let me go here. I'll type this out. What result? Oops. I help who, what result? Who is the person you're speaking to? Like, I help CMOs of Fortune 500 companies. I help marketing executives of tech companies, whatever it may be. You want to be specific. So when they hear that, it's, wow, that's me. The what is not important. You don't want to sit here and explain everything you guys do and what you do and how you do. 2 or 3 words max. And this is just to give context into how you're going to get the result. Now, but the magic happens here is when you're taking the result from what you learned their problem is. So after you've talked to them about what issues they're having and you've dove in deep and you really got to know what problems they're experiencing, now you just said, I help you basically create whatever to get result that you were just telling me is a problem for you. So, and what's nice about this is you could actually rotate these in any order, who, what, result, so that you could make it fit into a better flowing sentence depending on how you're going to say it. So you say that one sentence and that's it. Then you jump back to them. What do you guys think the next step is? After giving that one pitch, that sentence pitch? Feedback? Okay. Anybody else? What are you hoping to get out of today's discussion? Okay. Ask more questions. Good. Good. Andrew, I like your train of thought. Qualify more. Dive back in. Again, you could only sell something to somebody that has a problem and you solve it. So the deeper you go in and the more you have that discussion with them about the problem they're having, this so-called pain that everybody talks about, the more you bring that up, the more it hurts them. It's like, and then you take it and you rub salt in the wound and you get them to explain it further and mean, hey, what does that mean? What does that mean? What happens to your business if you don't solve this, etc. And the more you talk about this problem that they're having, now what you're doing is you're actually creating urgency. For those of you that are getting ghosted, or those that are getting, okay, let's talk in 4 weeks from now, where it's, if they're interested, but it's not so important to them, it's because you're not doing this. You're not getting them to talk enough about their pain, or you're not talking about the right pain to actually motivate them to have a sense of urgency. A lot of people think sense of urgency is just giving a discount if you sign by the end of the week. That's bullshit. Urgency is if you don't fix this problem, you're going to lose $500,000 worth of deals or whatever it may be for their company. That's creating real urgency. And that's what a professional does in this call, is find out what the problem is and what that means to the company and the business. Tactical psychology. It is. Sales is psychology. And if you guys are avid learners and you guys are going out there and learn, psychology is really important in sales. And so is a part of psychology, which is called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Also very important. That's more about the language you use and the tonality, the pauses, the speed, and your body language as well. So we had our small talk. We asked some questions about the problem. We bring it back to us. We say our one sentence, but then we go back to them. Now, what do you guys think we should do? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Let me see if I can help you. Okay. Anybody else have an idea? Or talk about the solution? Okay. Tell me how we could solve the cases they outlined during these answers. Good. Who's affected on this problem if not solved? Vignac, that's really a good question, but that's in the qualification stage. That question is a perfect question, but you should ask that during the qualification stage. Understanding if they actually have the budget, and we'll press ahead. Okay. Going back to the psychology of things, what do salespeople normally do? They push you forward and try to close the deal and move it along. I'm telling you to take a step back and ask them. Ask them, do you have questions for me? Now, what you've just done here by doing this is taken where you're normally leaning into this, the salesperson is normally leaning into the prospect. Now you've reversed that and you're asking the prospect to lean into you. Because now they're going to come in like, hey, tell me about your product, or tell me how you solve this issue, or tell me how you get that result that you just said you get. And now it's changed in the subconscious of their mind, because now it's not you coming and pitching them and telling them about how you do X or Y. It's them asking, and now they're intrigued. Now they're on the edge of their seat and listening to you. And the really good thing is, if you did this sentence right here, they'll be on the edge of their seat this entire time, waiting to be able to ask you the questions. But even deeper than that, now you get to learn, out of all the things that you touched on and you discussed, what was the most important for them, because it's going to come out in the way that they ask. Listen for how the words that they use and how they ask you questions. Where are they focusing on? That's going to show you a lot of where their more importance is and where you need to focus on for the demo stage, which we're going to learn later. So after you answer a few questions, you don't want to go in too deep. You want to move on to, as I said, most salespeople want to push, and it's really true. You do want to, momentum kills all deals. However, you need to have buy-in, and you need to have some commitment from the prospect in order to keep moving down the buyer journey. And a great way to do that, get commitment, is not just money. It's also time and effort from them. And so one of the things that we're going to do here now is stop the call. This call should only be 20 minutes. This is a discovery call. It should only be 20 minutes at max. And so the next thing that you're going to do, and the last thing you're going to do, is next steps. Hey, that's a really good question. Or you want to see the product? No problem. Why don't we schedule another call? Because we don't have enough time. We only scheduled here half an hour or 20 minutes. Why don't we set up another call? And then you go in and you book the call with them. Say, hey, next Wednesday at 2:00. Sound good? Good. I'm going to put that in your calendar now. Now that you have it in their calendar, now ask, okay, who else needs to be in this call with us? And what you're doing there is first you're getting in the calendar, and then you get invite the other people. Because if you do it the opposite, then what's going to happen a lot of times, they're going to be like, well, let me check with John, let me check with Bob, see what his schedule is like, and then I'll get back to you. You don't want that. It's better to get it in the calendar now and then reschedule later if need be. Good. So, quick walkthrough. Small talk, qualify, about me, qualify again. Hey, what questions do you have for me? Next steps. This sounds really nice, but it sounds really blocky. So, we have transition points all along this so that it flows like a conversation, because that's really important. You really want this to flow and you want it to be natural. When you're having the small talk, you're kind of putting the person at ease because, hey, we're not business yet. When you start talking business, it puts people's alarms up, their subconscious radar, to protect themselves. Because, hey, I'm on a call with a salesperson, and I need to protect myself from being sold. This is the subconscious protecting you. So the small talk starts to like, hey, we're not in business yet. We can just relax. And then you want to transition into the business, but you do not want to trigger that alarm. And so what you need to do here is say, hey, before we begin or before we start, how do you do X or do Y? And this is where you put in your opening question, and that so that they start answering it. But saying that part of before we begin, it's triggering the subconscious to say, hey, okay, we're not starting yet. Relax. We could sit back for a minute. And now you could actually have a real deep conversation with them.
Adam, is that in the first meeting or that's in the second one? So where does that, we're still in the first 20, 30-minute meeting?
Yeah. This is all the first meeting. This whole thing is only 20 minutes. Now, it might.
Okay, I lost you. We moved on.
This is in this step right here. Now I'm talking about that transitions. How do you go from one step to the next? Because these are all very blocky. So going from the small talk into the next part of the conversation, that's when you say, hey, before we begin. Does that make sense? I don't know who was asking that.
Yeah, it's Drawer. Thank you. Yeah, it makes
perfect. So then once you get into qualification and you start qualifying the prospect and they start asking you questions or answering your questions, and then before you go and bring it to you, you need to acknowledge the fact that they were just explaining stuff to you and they were just giving you a lot of information. Say thank you. It's really important here. It's like, thank you for giving me that information. This is very helpful. Remember, the whole thing is to make them feel at ease, also to build that rapport. People generally want to help other people as well. And so when you say, thank you for helping me, or thank you for giving me this information, it's very helpful, or it helps me understand, they now feel like, wow, they just did something. They did something for you. So thank you for this. This is really helpful. Let me tell you a little bit about me. And then you go into, I help who, what, result. I help early stage B2B founders create sales processes to get to 20 million in revenue and scale. Now, this next transition is a very hard one. And I'll tell you that up front. Going from this sentence pitch back to qualification is hard because it takes practice. Because what you want to do is give enough of a pause after saying this one sentence so that it sinks into the back of their head. But you don't want to give too much time for them to ask a question. Because if they start asking questions, you lose control of the call and you bring the focus back to, you need to keep the focus to where you want to bring, which is what value can I provide to them? Which is, by the way, a side point here. At any time, if you see that you're not going to be able to help them with their problem, let them know. Don't keep trying to sell them. Say, hey, look, I don't think I could help you, and here's why. And then see if there's a conversation. Maybe you misunderstood. That's happened a few times to me. And it also makes them feel like they need to convince you to work with them. But that's a side point. So anyways, the transition here is I help who, what, result, pause. Hey, before you said X. So what you're doing is you're bringing them back over here to the qualification. So you're saying, hey, before you told me that you were experiencing X or Y. Now you ask your deeper question. What does that mean? Or what happens to the business if you don't fix this or don't solve that? Or what will happen to the business if you do fix this? Depending on where you are in the conversation. So basically all this stage is a pause, is a break so that they don't feel interrogated. And this transition is meant to connect the two and bring you back to where you want to do, which is qualification. Who
Can I ask a
knows
question here?
after you ask? Yeah.
Sorry, it's Dror again. So when you ask, how does that impact your business? Doesn't that position you a little bit as a non-professional? Because theoretically, you're the professional who knows that when they do X wrong, that's immediately the impact. So when you ask them, it seems like, it's like a little bit of a third grader asking the question.
I hope I sound even younger than a third grader. I want to be the stupidest person in the room. Sometimes when I'm running a team, and I come onto a call with like a trainee or something like that, I'll have them introduce me as the trainee that they are training so that I could ask the stupid questions. So no, it actually helps very much. And it does the opposite effect. It will actually make you look very professional because you're asking them questions nobody has asked them before. And not only has nobody asked them before, they probably even haven't asked themselves this before. And our job as salespeople is not to sell a product. It's to help them solve a problem. And in order to help them solve a problem, we need to define what that problem is. And then along the way, we needed to define what success will be to see if it's worthwhile to get product A, B, or C. And one of those happens to be our product. Somebody else had a question?